Okay, excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. Great to see all of you. I think we have an exciting agenda for today. We're going to talk a little ed policy, a little legislation, what's happening with that. I know Dr. Woods Tucker is on to give you an update over equity and anti-racism work that we have underway. What else is on our agenda for today?
We have an update. Sorry, I think I may have been muted there. So we do have an update with Chuck. Chuck has joined us on legislative items. The students were wanting to hear a little bit about particularly 178 and a couple of other items pertaining to K-12. So you and Chuck are going to give them an update on that. We're going to go over a little bit on the virtual tour and ask them maybe one or two questions that we're going to be asking our participants in the virtual tour and have them participate in that. And then we're going to talk about the Equity Project with Anastasia and Dr. Woods Tucker.
Great. All right. Well, that's a great agenda. Chuck, why don't you go ahead and come on and unmute, and we'll introduce you, and maybe you and I can do the legislative update together. So this is Chuck.
Hey, everyone. Good morning. Glad I'm finally getting the chance to meet you all. I've been invited, I think, to the last few, but the legislature has taken up all of my time. So fortunately, we're in the veto period now. They're not meeting today, so I get to see all your smiling faces. I guess before I get started, I think I owe all of you an apology because with House Bill 178, the Senate removed the teacher and the student member in their version of the bill. And, I basically was talking to the House members and I said, this is probably as good as we're going to get. So there are other elements of the bill that we really need. So concur with the Senate and let's get this passed. And you all banded together. You made your voice heard to all the House members. And they said, no, we're going to stand up for students and teachers. And we're going to make sure that they're on the Board of Education. So right now, where we are at, we reached a compromise. So the teacher and the student member would be appointed not by the governor, but by the Board of Education itself. And they would put in place policies and procedures to determine how that decision would be made. So the Senate has already signed off on that. They voted on that last week. We expect the House to do the same this next week. I think they would have done it last week, but there were a lot of bills that they needed to get passed and sent to the governor during the veto period because they like to reserve the right to override those vetoes if they don't like what the governor has done. And frankly, the legislature is not concerned about the governor vetoing this bill. He likes this bill. So we expect to get that passed hopefully Monday, but maybe Tuesday. And that is the deadline, Tuesday at midnight, to get all bills passed. So we really feel good about where we're at on that. And again, we really appreciate the students really mobilizing in a way that I had never seen before, and I was totally not expecting that. So congratulations on that. You made your voice heard, and the legislators really now understand how important that student voice is to make sure that you have your say when decisions are made in Frankfort. That's the only. Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
Do you guys have any, while we're discussing 178 and this particular bill, do you all have any questions for Chuck or the commissioner? I know many of you had questions during the process. Now is your chance. If you want to raise your hand or ask questions, you've got, our liaison who's been doing all of that work, has been meeting with all of the legislators, and obviously Dr. Glass, who's been advocating on your behalf throughout this process. Do you have any questions about this particular bill or anything that we can answer for you at this time?
Or any other legislation that's moving through Frankfort?
Maybe we could also cover just the major education policy matters that we're tracking, Chuck. So a couple of the other bills that we're paying attention to that have been in the news. So kind of give a broader overview, and then we'll come back and process through 178 and the other matters as well.
Sure. The other bill that may interest a lot of you is Senate Bill 128. And that is a bill that would allow all K-12 students if your local school district signs off on the plan, would allow all K-12 students to come back next year and sort of have a do-over. Now, what that means is that doesn't mean you have to take the same classes and do the same things all over again. It basically allows you to repeat courses that you feel like you could have done better in, if you had the classroom experience rather than a virtual environment, or it may allow you to take advantage of certain opportunities and take new classes that you really wish you could have taken or didn't take this year because of the virtual environment, but you want to take advantage of that. A lot of students, from what we are hearing, are using the opportunity to take dual credit courses next year if they have the opportunity, because they can get that college credit without going to pay community college or university prices. The same thing applies to some students who wanted to take AP courses or International Baccalaureate courses. There are also a lot of cases where students, again, just, there are a lot of classes, and I'm sure you all realize this, that are just hard to take online. You don't have that one-on-one experience with your teacher in the classroom going over things in depth, particularly with areas where you might struggle. For some students, for me, that was science. For other students, it may be English or math or what have you. And so this is an opportunity to, if you got a C in history and you think you can do better, this will allow students to come back and take that course again. Now, you can only get 1 credit for graduation for that course, but it'll allow you to sort of get up to speed on those areas where you really feel like you want to prepare for college. So Senate Bill 128 is that bill. The governor has announced that he will be doing a lot of bill signings and vetoes tomorrow. So we would expect, I would expect Senate Bill 128 to be among those bills that is signed by the governor tomorrow, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. One other bill that is probably the talk of the town in Frankfort is House Bill 563. And for any of you who are really into education policy and watched KET last night, Dr. Glass was on KET with a variety of other folks discussing this bill in education policy. House Bill 563 has 2 different components. One would allow the state's funding through the SEEK formula, which is sort of our base formula for school funding, to follow students to other public school districts. So for instance, if you live in Woodford County, but you wanted to go to a school in Fayette County because, say, your parents work there and it's easier for them, or because you just want to take advantage of those opportunities in Fayette County public schools, if Fayette County set up a policy to allow students to come in, they could do that. This sort of opens a lot of opportunities for kids to attend schools in those different districts. There are a lot of issues with that, however. It's sort of very broadly written, and so there's not a whole lot of details on how that would actually be executed. And as I like to say, the devil's always in the details. And so that's one of the things that we had actually asked the legislature, and they did in a couple of ways accommodate us. But we really think this needs a lot more study and a lot more work and a lot more research to make sure that when it goes live, that we have all the pieces in place to make it a smooth transition. Because frankly, there are some schools that may close simply because all of this rush of kids from one district to another, there may not be enough kids in certain communities anymore to be able to keep a school open. The other half of that bill is the education opportunity accounts, which is essentially big companies or rich people can take a tax credit up to $1 million each and up to $25 million on a statewide basis. And that money would then get funneled into education opportunity accounts, essentially, which could be used for a variety of purposes. But the big purpose is probably going to be private school tuition for some students. It's only limited to students in the 8 largest counties in the state. So if you don't live in one of those urban areas, you're sort of out of luck on that front. The other issue that we have with this bill is that essentially there is no accountability. I mean, you all know in public schools, you have to take these tests. Your schools are measured. We hold them accountable for the sort of the outcomes that they provide. Private schools don't have that. We have no way to compare and no way for parents and families and students to make those decisions on, is this actually a better school for my student? There's just no way to compare that. And so we're just afraid that basically this is going to be a way for people to make money without actually providing that academic benefit for students, particularly at a time when this is taking $25 million out of the state treasury, when we need extra money, not just the money we have, we need extra money for public education right now, because there are a number of things that we're not funding that we really should be to help all public school students. So I'll stop right there. Wallace, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, well, first of all, good morning. We're really excited to have you with us. And, I've just sort of been listening here, kind of to your information you shared with us. And I'm just curious more about 563. And I guess, as someone who really values public education, I have a great concern there with that legislation. So I know you briefly touched there on sort of more short-term effects. From a long-term standpoint, do we have any idea what the long-term ramifications of 563 could be when it comes to public education?
Well, this I think is just the beginning, simply because once you open it up to a $25 million tax credit and it can be used in these certain ways, this is a 5-year pilot program is what it is. I have no illusions that it'll end after 5 years. They will find a way to expand it and extend it. So this will go on for longer than 5 years, and this will certainly be expanded beyond $25 million as time goes on. I would assume that private school funding will expand from not just 8 counties to all counties at some point. That was a heavy lift for them in this session, but I have no doubts that as time goes on, they will be able to expand that. And so what you're going to do is, this is going to be under the illusion of choice, where, and no, everybody likes choice, right? Everybody likes more options. The problem is these aren't informed options. This is like, giving your 5-year-old brother the option. Would you like ice cream for dinner or broccoli? Well, yeah, he's going to choose the ice cream, but is that the best choice? Is that the most informed choice? Probably not. And so what it's going to do is they're going to use this rhetoric to allow people to have more choice. And this will also open up the option for charter schools, which again are not really burdened with certain regulations and requirements and accountability that most public schools are. And the argument that I have made is that, why do people want to send their kids to private school? Why do students want to attend private schools? And I get it. Sometimes the public school you're attending may not be the right fit for you, and you want more options. And that's why, Dr. Glass and I have said, the public school option is definitely an option worth pursuing and a conversation worth having. Sometimes, you'd be better off in a different school. But you have to make that informed choice. If private schools are offering something that public schools aren't, if they have something that is attracting parents to those private schools, well, then what can we offer to public schools to help them compete? That's the thing. We need to improve public schools and make them more competitive. We don't just throw them away and let everybody flood to the private school market. That's not the way to solve the problem.
All right.
I may add to that just real quick, Chuck. I think the question is really good around what's the long-term impact. So, and we have seen states that have had these systems in place for 2 decades. So this is it's not an unknown what's going to happen. What we will see long-term is the tax credit amount will get larger and larger. The number of private schools taking part in it will get larger and larger. So you'll have more public schools and private schools that are serving students with either public dollars or these tax credit dollars. So you're over time going to have more students attending private schools and fewer students attending public schools as that sort of starts to balance out. So we're going to go through a period, because what we're doing is we're thinning the resources. You're going to have more public dollars going to a bunch more different locations. And so there's going to be a period of fewer resources. There's going to be a thinning of those resources. And you're going to experience pains of school closures, consolidations, district closures and consolidations. Those kinds of things are what we should expect as well. We don't see large-scale changes in performance in the system. So things, 20 years from now, if we pursue this and implement this fully, we don't see sort of massive leaps in performance or outcomes as a result of this. The research on that is mixed at best. We also don't see that it's low-income students are the ones that take advantage of this. The research clearly doesn't indicate it's low-income students that do this. It's affluent and well-to-do families are typically the ones that take advantage of this for a couple of reasons. One is that it takes some supports to get signed up for the tax credit, get all the information. There are still transportation concerns. If you have any sort of special needs or supports necessary, a lot of private schools don't provide those. So we don't see this wash of low-income students that go into private schools as a result of these programs. What we also see is that over time, students who lower income students who go into these programs, a lot of them get pushed out of the private schools, or they leave the private schools, they go back to the public school, and they actually perform worse than students who had stayed in the public school. So I think those are some of the downsides of what we can expect. Some of the upsides of what we can expect is you'll see more innovative school models pop up. So lots of sort of boutique, specialized schools will pop up because there'll be a market for those kinds of schools. And parents will have more choices or options of what they can do with their funds. I think what the ultimate goal of the tax credit and public school choice aspects are to create a market for it within education. So if you're like a consumer, you have lots of choices available to you. And then the theory is that the consumer then chooses among those options for what's best for them. And the pressure of that competition causes the whole system to improve. What I think my concerns are really around equity. A market doesn't care about equity. A market cares about who can purchase the product and can you get it. So if we care about equity and making sure that everyone really has access to this, then there's more work to do. Markets also don't like to be regulated. They like to be unregulated, where people and businesses can do whatever they want. But we know that regulation, a lack of regulation, can lead to corruption, profiteering, low quality, and taking advantage of people. So I think, as Chuck said, we're not ideological opponents or proponents of school choice. What we are saying is that the current bill needs work because it doesn't really focus on low income or doesn't have an equity lens in thinking about how students get access to these programs. And we've got lots of concerns from a regulatory standpoint that we're going to see this being used as a tax protection scheme, that we're going to see profiteering, graft, corruption in this because there's no protections against those things.
Thank you, Caleb, for that question. Did anybody else, while we were on 563, I see there's 5 other hands. I guess I can just, if we want to go, Logan, I don't know if these are questions on 563 in particular, but we'll just go ahead and I'll just call on you and see what you have to say. Logan?
So mine is about 563. From my understanding, I guess, while there is like kind of relating to the socioeconomic aspect of it, while there is like a maximum amount to receive the vouchers, there's also a minimum. So I guess from what I was understanding, that's what it was. So I guess what is like the reasoning behind that for like, our lower income families not being able to use these? And then I guess based off the answer, I may have a follow-up question.
Sure. Well, there's not really a minimum. I mean, anybody who falls below that income threshold can apply. I think it's just, evidence and research and history have shown us that essentially to take advantage of some of these opportunities, you have to know the opportunities are out there. And so for whatever reason, it seems like the folks at the higher end of that income threshold, whatever that threshold may be in each individual state, those are the folks who tend to get that outreach. They tend to get out there. They tend to know where those opportunities are. And it's sort of, when you're stuck in a rut and you're focused on your daily life, you can't really think long term. You don't really focus. You're just trying to get by. A lot of times that happens with families who are that deep into poverty. And the other issue is simply that in a lot of areas, particularly in rural Kentucky, there just aren't as many options. There aren't those many opportunities. And so this really doesn't help them quite as much for whatever reason. And that's just a simple fact of geography.
So I guess my follow-up question with that is that if like only the, like higher income families are using this, would it create like some sort of like almost school segregation based on socioeconomics, like in the future?
You get
school choice, school choice efforts bring the benefits of parent empowerment and greater and more diverse school options. We've seen that. They also bring exactly what you're talking about. We see increased school segregation as a result of these practices being put in place. Oh,
Sorry, I was
muted,
muted
Tony.
there. Sorry. Next, Roheen. And I guess I need to remember to Chuck knows which districts you all are from. So Logan was from Fayette County. Roheen Dudd is from Jefferson County. Roheen?
Hello. Two questions. Has there been a discussion on like a cap on the number of students that can like switch districts? So I know you mentioned that if parents are working in one district, they can maybe send their kid to school in that district. Has there been a discussion on like capping the number of students that can switch around? And then with that, has there been any research done on the potential cost of implementing a program like this? Because as you mentioned, some schools may be start losing a lot of people, may have to shut down, whereas other schools may gain a lot of people and have to expand and renovate and hire more teachers and stuff like that.
So in the bill as it stands, and that's a really great question, Raheem. The bill as it stands there is a limit on the number of students who could transfer between school districts, but that is set by each individual school district based essentially on their facility capacity. So they can only absorb so many students at a time because they only have so much space in their classrooms. However, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. As more students come into a district, they will build more space to accept those students. And it sort of could be a runaway effect, particularly, and it's sort of like the private school argument as well. If parents find a particular school district attractive, well, they're going to, try to get their kids into that school district and into those particular schools. And for the students who are left behind in the district of residence, well, now it's got, you don't have those economies of scale anymore. Number one, because, the way we pay for school buildings is with debt. They issue bonds. So you've still got to pay the bonds on those school buildings, even if you've lost kids and you're not getting as much money to pay those bonds. And so it can be a bit of a snowball effect, particularly in rural Kentucky, when there are small districts that count on every student. A 10% drop from one district to another could be crippling for some. It could be a boon for others. And so that's particularly why we wanted to sort of put some guardrails on the legislation and make sure that it's being done the right way. Another one of those issues is to make sure that if a district is opening up its doors and says, we have room for 200 more high school students to come into our district, well, we want to make sure that they are, allowing 200 students from across the broad spectrum who want to be there. And we want to make sure that they're not rejecting certain students because, well, maybe they're troublemakers. They were disturbing in the classroom experience in their old district, and their old district is encouraging them to transfer districts, so they don't have to worry about that issue. We're worried that, a district may say, well, we really don't have the resources to help this student because they have multiple disabilities. Well, we can't allow that. If you're going to open your doors up, you have to allow, all students who can benefit from the opportunities your district provides. So that's one of our concerns. I apologize. I got to rambling there, Roheen. What was the second question you had?
Research done on like any additional cost with renovations, hiring teachers with some schools, like changing enrollment numbers and stuff.
I'm not aware of any particular research. I know a lot of other states do what we're looking at doing this year. I'll defer to Dr. Glass. He may have some insight on that.
Yeah, well, I think, Chuck, what you've said are some of the challenges that we'll see. That what you really have to put in place is some safeguards to make sure that districts aren't encouraging only some students to take advantage of it and discouraging others. So what would be natural is districts say, look, if you're a 3.5 GPA student and up, we would love to have you. If you're not that, stay away. Or if you've got expensive disabilities, stay away. Or if you need support learning English, stay away. Because those students with those needs are more expensive to educate. You have to put in place procedures that, or really state law and regulations that prevent that sort of gaming, or cream skimming is sometimes what it's called, where you take only the best students and then do things to keep other students from enrolling, or try and offload the students that you think are more expensive to educate or weaker. So we should have in place regulations that prevent that. Our concern with the current bill and the public school choice side is not that we're opposed to public school choice. We think that there can be some benefits of that, but it doesn't address any of that. So we should expect to see some of those kinds of behaviors take place between districts. There aren't really, if you can find mechanisms to have the funding flow from district to district with the student in some way, then there aren't really any new costs associated with it. Because if we say every student in Kentucky has roughly $7,000 that is available to educate them when they enroll in a new district, that those funds need to go with that student. There aren't new costs, but what you have to take into account is the district who is losing students. You have to have a mechanism to smooth out or lessen that decline, so they don't feel it all at once. They don't have a devastating budget loss in 1 year. This bill doesn't contain any provisions like that. That smoothing out of the loss. It also doesn't take into account that the district where students are going to, even though they may have a building that could accommodate them, they may not have the staff available to accommodate them. This bill doesn't take into account that. And so we think that the public school choice side of this could be significantly improved to account for the funding challenges, the enrollment equity challenges, and the management of the school choice process in ways that would improve it a lot.
And I will add to that the public school choice piece wouldn't actually take effect until the 22-23 school year. So that does give us a year of lead time. So even if this passes, if the legislature overrides a gubernatorial veto, we will be working on this for the next year to try to iron out the wrinkles and make sure that it's done in a streamlined way that doesn't really hurt the educational experience for any students.
Okay, thank you for that one. We'll go next to Anastasia. She is in Oldham County.
Hi. So regarding Senate Bill 128, I know you had lightly mentioned it, but how will that affect course credits?
So in terms of graduation, nothing will change. You still have to have the same number of credits distributed the same way. You can, again, repeat, let's say you have to take Algebra 2 to graduate. If you got a C in Algebra 2, you can take Algebra 2 again, but you only get the 1 credit for Algebra 2 towards your, I think, 4 math credits to graduate. So you can do that, but you still need the same 24 credits or however many it is for your cohort to graduate. That's the only, now if you failed then you can take it again and you can get that credit because you didn't get the credit the first time, if that makes sense. But that's sort of the only limitation on repeating courses. And again, this is something that each school district will have to work on, because, if you have a large number of students who want to take the same courses over again, well, you've still got to manage the class schedule. You only have so many Algebra 2 courses to be offered throughout the school day, that sort of thing. So, we're eager to see how many districts take advantage of this, how many students in each district take advantage of this, and sort of what their instructional plan is to accommodate the needs of their students. We're sort of all, this is a unique situation for all of us, and we're still trying to figure it out as we go.
All right, Sophie. Oh, yeah, I am unmuted. Sophie Farmer.
Yes, hi. Sorry, I can't turn my camera on. Like, the administration has blocked some Teams functions for me. So I actually have a few questions, and sorry if you've already covered this because I've had some technical difficulties and was not here for the beginning of the meeting. But one, I remember Dr. Glass mentioned segregation being a potential issue with the school choice bill. And I know, especially in school districts like Jefferson County, where I don't know if they still do this, but at least for a long time, a main form of integration was busing students and starting magnet programs in the west and east end of Louisville. And so I was curious how that would affect districts like Louisville, because if you look at the elementary schools where that system of integration is not in place, they are pretty heavily defined based off of racial and ethnic lines. So I was curious if you could see that even happen if we were expecting that to happen even within school districts like that, and potential precautions for those specific school districts, and how quickly we could see those changes start once, if the bill becomes enacted. Yeah, I think that's my question for that. And then I have a different question. And so I don't know if this bill was already mentioned, but I believe there was a bill that could make it so any student in the district could request to retake their year again, and not progress to the next grade. And that was something where the Board of Education could do a blanket yes or no. And so every student that requested it all got to repeat it or couldn't repeat it. And so I was curious how that could impact districts with fewer staff and stuff, and how having a large group all at once kind of repeat a grade, or nobody getting to repeat that grade could impact things, and potential revisions that could make that bill better.
Yeah,
Chuck,
so
maybe
go ahead, Dr. Glass.
maybe I'll take the school integration question, and you take the second part, this second year part. So Louisville and Jefferson County has been at the forefront of school segregation and integration work nationally for 3 decades. Almost 4 decades now. So going back to the 1970s, Louisville was one of the cities in the country that had a court desegregation order. So the courts ruled that the schools were still completely or largely segregated by race, and ordered this Jefferson County school system to do something about that. So their solution was busing. So they would bus students out of poor parts of Louisville to affluent schools, and they would bus students from affluent parts of Louisville into poor schools. And by doing so, they mixed the student populations and desegregated them. And that largely had a positive effect if the goal was integration of the schools. What happens is that so schools use busing as one mechanism to try and integrate them. Another tool that school districts use is boundary lines. And so, I'm sorry, we got my co-host over here, Sunny, taking a nap. So another thing that school districts do is they use their boundary lines around attendance areas for schools. And you often see these kind of gerrymandered strangely drawn boundary lines of which schools students attend, because what the school district is trying to do is say, we've got low income students here, we've got middle class students here, we've got higher income students here. Let's draw a boundary line around this school that mixes all that together so we don't have concentrated poverty or concentrated wealth in the school. So those are a couple of things that school districts do. What ends up happening, the more aggressive you are on integration efforts, your affluent parents tend to be able to mobilize and push back against busing efforts and integration efforts because they want their students to be in more affluent schools that are closer to their homes. And that's exactly what happened in Louisville too. So they used busing to integrate the school system. And then in the 1980s, about 10 years after the busing work had been underway and was being successful at integrating the schools, the school board reversed a large portion of that and basically said, we're going to transport the poor kids out of their district, and we're going to stop transporting the affluent kids into poor districts. So it shifted to like a one-way model. And that's when you saw a lot of the schools that are in the west end of Louisville start to drop in enrollment, it get closed down. You saw them convert to magnet schools so that the district could continue to use the buildings in some ways, but they weren't really integrated because once they switched to magnet schools, the criteria to get into the school were set so high that it excluded a lot of low-income students from going there. So what you ended up with is, even though the school is located in a low-income area, it's practically an all-white affluent school because of the entrance requirements that were set. What we can expect when you inject school choice into this discussion is that lower income families have a harder time accessing the school choice system, and they tend to choose schools based on geography. So this school is nearby me, it's convenient, they're working, they're busy, they don't have a lot of additional supports that some affluent parents have, so they choose the school that's geographically closest to them. So that creates a concentration of low-income students geographically in one place. Affluent parents are willing to drive their students to other school choice options and have the time, resources to do that. They are more likely to take advantage of choice. So what we tend to see, there are some advantages and upsides to school choice, but one of the disadvantages is it exacerbates inequities and it exacerbates segregation issues because of who takes advantage of choice. So there's a long-winded answer. It is like the Courier Journal did an amazing series on Jefferson County's history of school segregation and integration efforts, if you want to check it out. And I'll turn to Chuck for the other part of that.
Well, on the second question, that is Senate Bill 128, which we were discussing a little bit earlier, Sophie, so you may have missed part of that. But that gives me the opportunity to talk about sort of the timeline on this. So students have until May 1st to decide if they want to take advantage of this opportunity and submit a request to their local school district to do that. So the district, in turn, has until June 1st to make a decision whether it will offer that supplemental school year program. Now, the district doesn't have to do this. They can go up, thumbs up, thumbs down. But if they go thumbs up, it has to be for every student who has applied. So they can't strategically pick the students that they want to have take advantage of this. So I think to that concern, if in the district's view that there are too many students who want to take advantage of this, then they don't have the resources to do that, they can just say no, and that district will not participate. Now that said, there is quite a bit of funding flowing into local school districts from the federal government as a result of CRRSA, the CARES Act last year, CRRSA back in December, and the American Rescue Plan, which just passed recently. So there are a tremendous amount of resources coming to districts, and a lot of those are earmarked specifically for learning loss, remediation, offering opportunities to students to help them sort of overcome the unique circumstances that we've experienced in the last year due to the pandemic. So that is the situation for school districts. Now, the school district, once it decides on June 1st whether to do this program or not, they have until June 15th to submit a plan to the Department of Education and the Board of Education. In terms of, number one, they have to submit their plan just to show what they're planning on doing. And number two, there may be certain waivers that they need to do what they really want to do for the particular programs they want to offer, things of that nature. And if there are any waivers required, then the State Board of Education will have to meet probably in a special meeting to decide whether to give those waivers or not give those waivers. So that's sort of an accelerated timeline. And we here at the Department of Education will be working in the next week or so to put together guidance for school districts so that they know sort of, if you allow this to happen, these are the ramifications. This is what students can do and what students cannot do. And so we want everybody to make sure that there is a fully informed decision because, you know, a lot of students, particularly those students who are graduating this spring and could go on to college, you know, they want to know, you know, should they accept their college admission? Can they defer that a year? Are there more opportunities to come back and really prepare for college? That sort of thing. And we want every student and every district to make the decisions right for them, not sort of this blanket decision. I want to go back real quick. Jack Johnson, you're down in Marshall County, right? Entered a comment in the chat. And so I just want you to know that the current law allows, if your parents work in another school district than the one you represent, or the one that you live in, that you can attend the district that your parent works in. Obviously, the district has to allow that. And I think most do, because that's a good way to get good teachers and good staff. So that's already allowed, and I don't think that would change. There is some question as to whether those students would have priority ahead of just random students applying to attend that other school district, but they would still be allowed under this new system. And again, let me reiterate, this is part of a bill that has not gone into law yet, so it could still be vetoed. We don't know whether the legislature would override a veto if there were one. So we're still a few hurdles away from this becoming law. But Jack, does that answer the question or the situation you were asking about?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, sir.
And then Chuck, can you just let them know, just to give them, some of our students some of them are really versed in General Assembly in terms of the veto period and when our lawmakers will be coming back to potentially vote on these bills?
Sure. So the legislature meets for 30 days in an odd year session. Next year in an even year session, they'll meet for 60 days and they have more time. But this year, 30 days, and those are legislative days. So, you know, technically speaking, the General Assembly is still in session, but this doesn't count as a day because they're not physically in Frankfort voting on things. So they've had 28 of those days. Last Tuesday, so a week ago today, was the last day that they met, and that was day 28. So now what they break for what they call the veto period, because and this is pretty much the case in every democratic process we have in America. The General Assembly then sends the legislation to the governor for his veto or his signature. He can sign it into law, and then it'll go into law according to whatever the statutes say for that particular bill, or he can veto it. And if he vetoes it and basically, you know, gives it a thumbs down, it goes back to the General Assembly. They will be back in Frankfort on Monday and Tuesday of next week to decide on any vetoes that the governor has issued. And he's already issued a couple. I anticipate that he will veto House Bill 563 and any other bills that they have to consider. In order to override the governor's veto, they need a majority of all of the members elected to the chamber. So you need 20 senators and 51 House members, regardless of how many people vote. You know, you still have to get that majority of everybody elected. Now, on top of that, they can also pass more bills next week. And if they do that, the governor can veto them and it's done. There's no opportunity for them to come back because they are limited by the state constitution to adjourn by March 30th. And that's just the end of it. If the governor vetoes any of those bills, they're done and they have to wait till next year to try to pass it all over again. So there will be some high drama on on 563, I would imagine, next week, and then also high drama on House Bill 178, just waiting to get that vote on the what we call the Free Conference Committee report, which is essentially the compromise to sort of reorganize the State Board of Education to make sure we have a student and a teacher on it, among other things.
Thank you, Chuck. Looks like Caleb, you have your hand up again, and I forgot again to introduce where Caleb is from. Caleb is from Breathitt County. So Caleb, go ahead.
Yeah, so I could continue this conversation all day long, I think. I have some ideas that I'd like to share, and then also I have a couple of questions left that I'd like to ask you, Chuck, if you don't mind.
Sure.
First of all, I feel like, and I'm just going to assert my opinion here, I feel like, with the public school choice aspect of 563, it's similar to the non-residential contracts that a lot of school districts here in Eastern Kentucky have. With that, when it comes to, the tax dollars and things like that, I feel like the legislature really calls for accountability a lot of times. And so they question why public schools struggle. And I can't seem to understand why. I mean, we know that private schools are not subject to the same accountability measures as public schools are. And I see that tax dollars will potentially be funneled into private schools. Aside from that, my questions. So first of all, have other states implemented bills similar to Senate Bill 128 with the repeat year? And, what will the logistics of that look like? And then, when it comes to extracurriculars and sports, how will that all tie together? And then my other question and last question is, when it comes to the American Rescue Plan, I know there are a lot of measures that have been taken to try and get schools reopened in person. How will the money be distributed? Who will be in charge of ensuring that the money trickles down to small school districts in rural areas? Thank you.
Sure. That's a lot of questions. I will try to get them all. So being from Breathitt County, they have an independent district there in Jackson. And so that has been an issue that I've been aware of since I was in high school a long time ago, about that sort of battle between some of your independent districts and your county districts. And that is going to be an issue, I think, in a lot of spaces where you have an independent district and a county district fighting over students. And in a lot of places in Kentucky, the different districts actually work very well. They have what we call an any or all contract, which means that any student from my district who wants to transfer to your district can do so. And we just, the money follows the student. It's not a problem. But there are others, and I think Jackson and Breathitt have been two of those districts in the past where, they just shut down. They won't even talk to each other. And so this is sort of going to force certain conversations. Those are going to be tough conversations. And I would not be surprised. One of the things that we did get them to include in the final bill that went to the governor is that all of these non-resident pupil policies are going to have to be filed with the Department of Education. So we'll have a copy of all of those policies, and we can really take a good hard look at them and make sure that they are following sort of a policy of non-discrimination, that there's no unforeseen consequences. And if there are, that hopefully that gives us some lead time to fix them going into the future. As far as the American Rescue Plan, there is a federal funding formula that will determine how much each school district gets, just like there was in CARES and CRRSA. It essentially follows what we call the Title I formula. And so that is based on the number of low-income students in each school district. So districts of similar size may actually get significantly different amounts of money from the American Rescue Plan as they have from other federal programs, because the concentration of poverty is higher in one district than the other. And so that is sort of out of our hands at the Department of Education. That was dictated by Congress. And so those funds will flow. We will distribute them, but they essentially flow directly to the school district. And then the Department of Education has certain funds that are directed to us as well that we are going to be used sort of on a statewide basis for programs that will help all students across the board. And I'm sorry, I think I missed the middle question. Caleb, I apologize again.
Oh, you're fine.
I don't have a notebook in front of me.
Okay. Well, my other question was, have other states implemented bills that are similar to Senate Bill 128 as policy? What are the logistics of that implementation, and how will extracurriculars and sports work with that?
Right. So I'll tackle the sports question first. There is a provision in the bill that would allow students to have a 5th year of eligibility for high school sports. However, that is only for, they did not waive the age limit of 19. So I believe October 1st, I think, is the age limit. So if you turn 19 before October 1st, then you do not get that 5th year. There is still that hard cap on the age. One of the unintended consequences, I think, is that what if you are a freshman this year or a sophomore and you decided to take advantage of this opportunity? So you're held back. Well, this bill only really applies to 1 year, to the upcoming school year. So, you may be a senior by the time you get to your senior year, but you've already used your 4 years of eligibility for high school athletics. And so we think that's probably going to have to be a remedy that they deal with probably next year. This is one of those unforeseen consequences that when things get passed through without a whole lot of discussion, this is what happens. I'm not aware, and we sort of cast a wide net. We're not aware of any particular state that has passed. I mean, some of them considered legislation like Senate Bill 128, but nobody has passed anything of this magnitude that we have seen yet. So we're sort of the leaders on this one, for better or for worse. One of the benefits of copying from what everybody else does is that you sort of learn from their mistakes. Well, other states may be learning from our mistakes on this one. Again, we are trying to anticipate all of the sort of the cliffs that we may be approaching, and a lot of superintendents are already contacting us with questions about how to approach this. What happens if I do this? What if we have a student that wants to do this? How do we approach that? So we're trying to put sort of together this guidance in the next week or two in terms of how to approach it in a way that helps all students without any unforeseen consequences. I know I say that phrase a lot, but when you're speaking in terms of legislation, that's what we get a lot of. So we're all sort of flying blind, and I would actually encourage you, if any of you have questions in terms of, how does this apply, or what about this type of program? I am thinking about doing this. Please contact us with those questions, and we'll try to incorporate those into our guidance materials, because we want everybody, students and districts alike, to make good, solid, informed decisions.
Correct. And that's why you all are here. You are our advisory council. I mean, that's why we have, in addition to where we can help you with questions that you have, we need your help with developing our policies and our guidelines and reporting to the Board of Education. So when you have concerns and things that we need to know about, that's why we are able to come to you monthly. So very, very important to have your voice, as you all know. So. All right. Any more questions about the General Assembly for this session, or any other questions while we have Chuck and his inner genius here? He knows a lot of stuff about the General Assembly. We are very fortunate. He just came to us. He worked in the LRC for a long time. He just came to us. Very, very fortunate to have his expertise and for him to advocate for K-12 education. As you can probably tell by his knowledge on things for us. So,
Tony,
didn't know if y'all...
did you mention what the LRC is?
Oh, yeah. Chuck.
I work for the Legislative Research Commission. So I worked for the legislators essentially for the last 9 years or so, working on the state budget with them. So Chuck is also very well versed in the budget, which also comes very handy when we're working on budget stuff. So we're very excited. One thing that Chuck did not mention is that one of our items this year was to ask for full funding for both the Kentucky School for the Deaf and the Kentucky School for the Blind, which we were able. Chuck, we got that.
Get that. So we're hopefully that stays in the budget bill. That is, it's really huge for both the Kentucky School for the Deaf and the Kentucky School for the Blind. Full funding for all of our schools, but particularly the 2 schools that we directly oversee here at the Department for Education. So great news for both of those schools. So any other questions?
Well, thanks for letting me visit with you guys. I really appreciate it. These are some really good questions. I wish the legislators had asked questions at that level.
I
Honestly.
told you you'd be really impressed by this group. We also have Dr. Brewer. I don't know if you guys have met Dr. Meredith Brewer on. She's also works hand in hand with Chuck. I know Soyana knows Meredith really well. It's kind of we're all obviously a big team here at Team KDE, but Meredith does a lot of work too as well with the legislation and legislative work, providing updates to the Kentucky Board of Education. So I just want to give her a shout out as well. I mean, it's been a very active, very busy session. And so we're constantly working with our policy advisors, many of whom you all have met, some of whom are on this call. I can see them here in trying to just prepare, our standpoints and where we are on some of these bills. So I hope this was helpful for you. I know many of you, when I had asked what you'd like to see on the agenda, you had asked for this. So I hope this is kind of what you were expecting and what you were hoping for. And I guess with that, we can move on to the next item on the agenda.
Hey, Tony, just as we make that transition, one point of compliment to the students, the advocacy that happened, as Chuck mentioned early on, around the teacher and the student member on the Board of Education really made a difference. So I think that legislators hearing from students and the activism that you put together around that really had an impact, and I think showed the importance of student voice. And I appreciate you making yourselves heard in the process, so that your perspectives are considered.
Correct. So thank you all for what you have done,
including Solyana. I think is a budding opinion journalist, because she was published being outspoken on this. So we're very proud of Solyana and all of you.
Absolutely. And I was going to put in the chat to Caleb and anyone else who's interested, if you do want to continue this conversation, I'm more than happy to do so. I, as well, Caleb, enjoy hours of good thought about ed policy, so happy to talk with any of you if you're interested.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is just to talk about Dr. Glass's virtual tour. So I know some of you all participated in the training that we are going to be, our first one really is kind of the kickoff for Team KDE staff tomorrow. Some of you have graciously volunteered to help us during school hours on Thursday. I don't even know what day today is. I guess it's Thursday. Today's Tuesday. I don't even know what date it is. It's been like that for the past year. So those of you, some of you had training yesterday. Some will do some training tomorrow. And I wanted to invite Karen Dodd. Karen, are you on?
I am.
Awesome. So what I'd like to do is, several of you are, because you're going to be participating as facilitators. And speaking of lawmakers, by the way, let me just go back a little bit. We, Dr. Glass had sent invitations to all members of the General Assembly to attend these virtual town halls. And I'm happy to report that as of last night, we have 14 RSVPs. For some lawmakers have signed up for several sessions. So you may be in a room facilitating these conversations with the lawmaker. So I'm not sure, how we're going to do the breakout rooms. The University of Kentucky's College of Education is helping us with the Zoom rooms. So we're really pleased that we've had some lawmakers say yes, and they're going to be kind of participating in this conversation with us as we look at moving forward with what our goals and plans are for K-12 education in the state. So I just wanted to kind of mention that to you. I looked yesterday at the RSVPs and registrations. So very exciting that we're getting a lot of RSVPs and registration from people across the state, but including our General Assembly members. So going back to the virtual tour, we thought that because you all are going to be facilitating, and that many of you and some of you, and I'm going to give Amy Yang a shout out here. I think she has volunteered for all of them and said that she would like to do all of them. Will not be able to participate. We thought that we would just give you all one of the questions and see how it goes and get some feedback from you. Would that be okay? All right, so Karen's going to ask the question. What we're doing with these forums, as I've mentioned to you before, it's called empathy interviewing, where it's more of a kind of storytelling approach. So I'm not sure which. We have 8 area kind of buckets of questions that we're asking for. They're very structured questions. But I'm not sure which one Karen has chosen. So she's going to share that with us in just a moment. And I'll have her ask the question. And and if you all want to respond, you can either raise your hand or you can put your response in the chat. Karen?
All right. Yeah, as Tony said, just feel free to raise your hand, and we'll ask this as up to, I don't know, 3 or 4 of you want to respond to this question, feel free. So my question is, I'd like for you to talk about a teacher who stands out to you as being a great teacher. And tell us what experience you've had with that teacher that makes you think that they're really great.
And one thing I'd like you to do before you do that is let's not share the names of the teachers. Let's just talk in general. You know, I remember my 3rd grade teacher. I remember my sophomore English, just without mentioning names. Thank you. We have a couple of hands. Let's go with Jack. Jack.
Hi. So the teacher I'm going to talk about was my freshman math teacher, and he's actually not my school anymore. He moved to a different school. But I just remember I didn't really like math. I came off a year in my 8th grade year where I didn't really understand math as well. I was still decent at it, but I just didn't enjoy it. And he didn't just teach me the basics of geometry and how to apply those. He taught me time management. He taught me work ethic. He taught me motivation and discipline. And I've never had to study for tests. I've been blessed in that way. But I had to study for his tests, and he made sure that, you know, the things I studied, he taught us how to take notes. He gave us guided notes. And I took a look. He helped me take the extra step and understand why he put those notes, where he put them, and stuff like that. And ever since then, I've been very successful in my math classes and other classes because of the time management and the motivation and the discipline that he taught me in that. So I was very thankful for that. And those are some skills that I don't see going away anytime soon.
That's great, Jack. Can you tell me a little bit about how does it make you feel when you have a teacher that really goes that extra mile to teach beyond what you thought you were getting?
It was absolutely amazing. That's the simplest way I could put it. It's one of those that, you know, anytime somebody asks me that question, you know, who's your favorite teacher, who's the best teacher you've ever had, I always talk about this teacher because it really is. It's a standout performance, so to say. He's the MVP, or they are the MVP. But yeah, it's very, I don't want to say life-changing, but it's eye-opening.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Let's go on to Sophie.
Yeah, so I want to talk about another math teacher to pick up back off of that. But I had a math teacher when I was in 7th grade, and she had previously student taught at our school like the year before. And then she came back to teach us, and I was so excited because I remember having her as a student teacher and absolutely loving her. And then I got to have her as my actual like classroom teacher for math. And the way that she could transform a classroom is like, I have never seen it before. Every time she taught, there was so much energy, and the students were so like engaged. Like I feel like in a lot of classrooms, and I feel like especially in math, because I feel like math gets a lot of hate, there are students that are disengaged, and I never saw that in her class. Everybody was always engaged. We were always like working and enjoying what we do, and she talked about math and taught us math in a way that we had never experienced, where we got to really, really apply it to our life and like work on all of these projects that like it made the concept so much clearer, and she had so much passion for her subject. And up until that like grade, I had never really had a math teacher that was really passionate about their subject. They always felt kind of indifferent, and so it was so like exciting to have somebody who not only loved math so much, but like talked about it and why they liked math, and would explain to us like why she was teaching the way she was teaching. And she was very intentional about getting student feedback and getting student feedback in ways where every student felt comfortable. So she would pull us aside and ask us like how we liked the lesson, and if there was anything that she could do to improve to make it easier for us to understand, or if we would rather learn in a different way. And she had like a form that we would fill out every single day where we talk about like something that we learned and then something like some feedback for the lesson. And I had never seen a teacher be so intentional about getting student feedback and making it so easy, because it was something that she just did every day, and it was incorporated into every learning experience that we had. So it was just like overall just a wonderful experience to have somebody who was so passionate, to have somebody who kind of made math so easy and engaging, and then also like cared so much about how we were learning and how we wanted to learn.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sophie. What about Anastasia?
So whenever I'm asked this question, it always goes back to two teachers. One of them I had in middle school and one of them I have now in high school. But they both have impacted me in a way that has led me to where I am today. Both of them pushed me beyond my comfort level, and they were both able to get me into, I don't want to say the limelight, but they pushed me to allow my voice to be heard. The first teacher, he is now retired, but he was my 8th grade social studies teacher. But I had known him in 7th grade as well, because he was an advisor for one of the clubs that I was in. And he really impacted me because I was a sort of shy kid in 7th grade. And I was really passionate about this one topic. And he was like, you just need to say what you want to say. And he kind of pushed me to become an advocate. And that's part of the reason why I'm here today. But my other teacher, he is my business teacher, and I've had him for 2 years now. He is probably one of the best teachers that I've ever had. He pushes us to think outside the box. He gives us material that we need to know, but he always puts some sort of super fun project to get us engaged into the topic. For example, we were learning about entrepreneurship. And though COVID had happened, we had started a project that was similar to the show Shark Tank, and that got us all super engaged. We got to come up with products, and we got to learn the process of becoming an entrepreneur. And that was just one thing that always resonated with me, was that he, no matter what, always found a way to help us build on our skill level, by also allowing us to explore our imagination. And he's just been one of those teachers that I know will have a lasting impact, because he has shown me that it's okay to think outside the box. And he's just been one of those teachers who is easy to talk to as well. So we always talk to him, and he makes it fun in class.
That's great, Anastasia. I like that you said that these two teachers push you beyond your comfort level. How does it generally make you feel when someone pushes you out of your comfort level, and what made this makes you think of this guy as a great teacher because he did that?
Well, the feeling that I got when I was pushed outside my comfort zone was just a boost of confidence. I wasn't that confident when I spoke in class, but when this first teacher, when he told me, go voice your opinion, it gave me the biggest boost of confidence that I had had. And then with my teacher now, he just accelerated the confidence level in me. He pushed me to be more passionate towards the subject. And by allowing them to push me beyond my comfort zone, it has allowed me to see that these teachers, they're people as well, and they know how to show us how to get us to where we're supposed to be. And it allows us to see, yes, they're not only a teacher, but they've also had life experiences that will help us by them teaching us. And so that's part of the reason why these two teachers always come to mind whenever I'm asked this question.
Thank you so much. I'll take one more. Miles?
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna talk about my APUSH teacher last year in junior year, and I feel like what makes him the best teacher I've ever had is his ability to like be personal and to stay consistent. So like, he's like an older guy, right? And like I know a lot of people kind of prefer like younger teachers, but the best part about teachers, like they have experience under their belt. They've gone through all of these things, right? So their ability to be patient with you, their ability to pull you like aside after class and talk to you about just like how your life's going, because like education, like it's gonna come and go. Like we're gonna graduate high school, but the thing that stays is the relationship, right? Your ability to continue talking, your ability to continue communicating outside of school, and just building upon that is something that you can't take away. So. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Tony, you just wanted one question?
Yeah, well, I mean, I see there's a couple more hands of people that wanted to participate. So I guess before we can do one more question, or unless you want to get to, there's 3 more hands. I'm willing to do 3 more hands, or we can go to another question. But what I wanted to do with this was kind of show you all that this is exactly what we're looking for in the tour. So what our note takers will be doing is writing down notes, and we're going to take what the stories you've provided. And I see that some of our associate commissioners are on here, and obviously Dr. Glass is on here. But these are the kind of things that we will write down in our notes, and not just from a student perspective. Your parents are going to be on here. Lawmakers will be on here. Community representatives will be on here. We're going to ask them to share stories too, if it wasn't about their personal education experience or a teacher that they had. Because as we all know, education experiences differ from generation to generation, and from a parent's perspective versus a child's perspective. So that's exactly the kinds of responses that we are looking for in our tour. Wouldn't you agree, Karen?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Do you want to go to another
let's
question?
Go
we probably have time, or we can ask these other
Gavin
3.
has his hands up. Yeah, Anastasia answered and Miles answered. So Gavin, you wanna answer that same question?
Sure. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the teacher that I'll talk about is my teacher. He's one of my teachers this year, actually. He's my AP World teacher. And I've always been a tactile learner. I like hands-on things. I'm better at learning from example or doing it by myself than I am from just hearing it. So this teacher is very I don't know how to put this other than loud and outspoken, and he's very aggressive about some things he does, but he's also very he's good at making projects, having me working with my peers, which I love doing that also. And I'm trying to think of how to put this into words, but for example, the other day, in order to symbolize like communism and capitalism, we played a game using poker chips, and I really liked that. And it wasn't just like bingo, but it was like a game he created in order to symbolize that relationship. And those kinds of things that I really like, those more creative, different things. I've got like a cold, that's so that's why I'm like super congested. But that really stands out to me. And he doesn't take himself too seriously, and I really like that. People who hold themselves really in a high standard sometimes kind of throw me off, but he doesn't take himself too seriously, and he's showing me that it's okay to like, you can do things really well without being the most serious about it. And I really like that because I tried to do the same thing. Here, I can say it like this. I guess I look up to him. I could say it like that.
That's great. Thank you, Gavin. We got another hand up, but I'm going to switch the question up on you. So Caleb, hopefully, let's see who else. Cade. I'll go to Cade, and let's see if you are still interested in answering this question. Describe something outside of school that kept you from learning, and how did you get through it? And this is a great year for this one, I think.
I think I already know how Caleb's going to answer this one. It's really relevant to what's happened in his area in the last little bit here.
Cade, you had your hand up. Did you want to go ahead and try that one, or were you hoping for the other question?
Go first. I'm going to have to give it some thought, but he definitely has an answer.
I saw him smile right away. I figured he already had one ready to go.
So yeah, I can go ahead and start talking here. I haven't really prepared my thoughts, but I can just share. So back in the beginning of March, on top of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, in our area here in Breathitt County and in surrounding counties, we've dealt with flooding and displacement and a number of issues as a result of both of those things. And so our students are struggling because, some students are now homeless. Some don't have access to internet because of flooding and things of that nature. And so that issue has really presented a lot of obstacles. For me personally, I've had to email my professors and ask for some extra time to complete assignments because I've been out and about with recovery efforts. Because really, in order to address the issues that have resulted from the flood, it's going to take a community effort. And so I'm really appreciative to all the folks there at HCTC and KCTCS who wanted to work with me on that. And then also, this actually gives me a great opportunity to mention something that I had thought about mentioning before the meeting. Some folks from Woodford County, and I don't know if we have, Tony, maybe you want to, do we have any students from Woodford County who are members of the council?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think we have any from Woodford County, although we do, I will say we have 308 applicants for next year's council.
Right.
And
So
I think there are quite a few from Woodford County on there, so.
Okay. There were some folks from Woodford County who made their way down to help, and the Shelby Austin, who's actually originally from Breathitt County, she's the Northside Elementary curriculum coach. She came down with some supplies, and then Martha Jones, who is the director of student achievement there in Woodford County, she also came, and a number of students came to help clean up, and so I'm really thankful for that, and our whole community is. But yeah, the flood has definitely presented challenges.
So Caleb, tell me how that, how did you get back to the learning, given that, that was such a barrier for you?
And that's a great question. So I'm still sort of in the process of catching up. I will say that, given that we have had, an import of, or the number of resources that have came in to help, it has sort of, in a way, relieved some of the stress on the community and people in the community who, really felt called to help. There is a lot of work to be done. But yeah, I'm still in the process of transitioning back to learning and, as I said, getting caught up.
Great, thank you so much. Kate, are you still wanting to give this one a shot? I see your hand is raised.
Oh, yeah, there I am. Yeah, I'll give it an answer. I'll say my answer is a little bit similar to Caleb's, which I think is just because we're in a very similar region. But for me, what comes to mind is there were several times where a couple of my classmates had some personal issues. I'm not obviously going to say any names, but one of my friends recently, she has a really rough home, and she was not able to stay at her home just because of the situation. So that me and a couple of my friends were really concerned with all that was going on with her, and we made sure that she had somewhere to go, like with one of us. So I think just things like that have been some examples of like what's kept, I guess, people around me from learning. And then even with the flood too, like we've not, I don't think necessarily as bad as Breathitt County. I know it's been really tough over there, but there's been several students here that have lost their homes and that have been without power for a considerable amount of time with the ice storm that we had, and then with the floods right after. So just things like that.
Thank you. So would you say that was it you or your family that invited the other folks in to help them through that situation?
So yes, we were one of the options. She did find somewhere to go, but yeah, we were, right there with her in case, something fell through.
Great. That's fantastic. Thank you. Anyone else want to answer this one? Something outside of school that kept you from learning? Anastasia?
Layla? Or what was I say? Still Layla? Saw hers popped up.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I don't have necessarily a specific situation for myself, but as Cade was talking, I realized that a lot of my peers and a lot of classmates experience very similar situations where, like, I have seen people from my middle school and high school who will completely break down, and just especially throughout this past pandemic, they haven't really had the support that they normally have, whether that's through peers, teachers, or staff, to be able to sort of pick themselves back up or just at least try to trek along the way. And so for example, there's this one friend that comes to mind, and she was experiencing some really tough family loss and separation and family conflict. And there were times where her grades completely fell through, but even worse, she had trouble talking to people, which I recognize that being able to communicate with somebody and at least just express how you're feeling or give some sense of hope or have some sense of hope is really important for students. And so that's just another thing that I've seen, just tagging on to what Cade said. Thank you.
Thank you, Soleila. Anastasia, did you want to add something?
My hand isn't raised.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought I saw
No,
it.
you're good.
Miles, did you want to add something else? Or was that from last time?
No, I had my hand raised. All right, so like at the beginning of March, right? Like I'm pretty sure like most people were in the similar situation where because of lockdown, a lot of parents lost their jobs, right? And so like unfortunately my parents both, like as a result of the lockdown, lost their jobs. So like we were on stimulus for like up until like, I don't know, early August, my parents got their job back. But like luckily for my dad, right, he has like a landscaping business. So like he took on like a lot more projects and stuff to be able to kind of cover the money that was lost. So like during that whole, like, I would say like March into like May and then over the summer, like I was just like helping him out more than I was like doing other things, just because like, I mean, obviously like he needed me during that time to help like cover the bills. So I'm pretty sure like there are also like other people in that situation where they just like, a lot of kids had to step up and take whatever jobs they had to help cover their parents' rent. So
helping out family has impacted the amount of studying you can do. Do you feel like that's something that you're going to be able to get, or have you gotten caught back up on, and how did that work?
I mean, yeah, once like the new year started, I kind of like was able to like get back on track because, I mean, you know, like my parents had got their job back, so it wasn't something that I was worried about. But I'm sure that there are a lot of kids and like still like, you know, their parents haven't gotten their jobs back. I mean, there's still like hundreds of thousands of jobs that haven't been replaced yet. So it's definitely something that we're still going to be dealing with for a while.
Yeah, we're definitely in some uncharted territory, aren't we? Thank you for sharing that, Miles. Anna Renee?
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to add something quick because I know we have other stuff to talk about. But just hearing about personal experiences within this council and then peers' experiences that they have heard about or have been a part of trying to help, it really emphasized the amount of stress that our students are currently under and will continue to be under because of the circumstances that we are faced with. And I think it's taken away the beauty of learning and the aspect of discovery that students have adapted to and within the school system. And I think that lack of passion behind learning and more of the focus on the quantity of learning has really taken away something that could be so impactful to our students in their lives and in their growth to become adults and civilians within this world. So I think that as a council, we definitely should encourage, I guess, off-time learning and discovery with different media sources, and just encourage students to not only focus on their grades and their schoolwork, but also how they can learn and discover within themselves. So that's what I think.
I like that. I think that's very insightful. And if I'm hearing you correctly, maybe part of the learning that you're doing is how you're getting through this pandemic. Am I reading that right?
Yes, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Just getting through it and talking about the struggle, kind of like we're doing here. Maybe that's something that could be added into the classroom to show the learning and growth that you're doing, but in another way. I like that. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, Tony, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, guys, thank you so much. While Anna was speaking, it occurred to me that I want to make sure that as you all get some exciting news, and I think Anna knows where I'm going with this, she's going to smile here. I would like you to make sure you share that with me because Anna, I found out, and this was just because I was reading through social media on Saturday, that she has been accepted as a McConnell Scholar at the University of Louisville. She's also been accepted as a Porter. I think it's a Porter Scholar. Is that right? University of Louisville. It's a very, very prestigious program at the University of Louisville. Very, very hard to get into. And so congratulations on that. I thought I saw her picture and I was like, all right, you either have a twin or you haven't told me something. So I checked with her. It is in fact our Anna Williams. So congratulations, Anna. I know that despite everything that you guys have gone through, just the amount of stress that you guys have gone through and everything the past 2 years, in your entire K-12 experience, I would love for you all to share happy news, great news with us so that we can share it. I know that Makila also, I saw some happy news on Facebook with, I had no idea that she's been so active in FFA. There was a beautiful picture of her in her blue jacket, and I shared that as well. So please make sure that I'm aware of that so that we can share that with the group so we can also, I can just let people know and also let our communities across the state know when you all receive some happy news like that. So just made me think about that when you were speaking. So, all right. So with that, I would like to go to the final item on the agenda, which is Anastasia. I don't know if Dr. Woods Tucker is back. But they have been working on.
I'm here. Yes, I am.
Perfect. I know we've had teachers advisory going on at the same exact time this morning. So he's been kind of doing a dual thing. So, but Anastasia and Dr. Woods Tucker have been working on an equity project, and several of you all are involved in that. And I was going to have her provide an update on that.
Yes, so though we are not too far into the project yet, Dr. Woods Tucker and I have decided that we're going to start on the equity video. And so about a few weeks ago, I sent out a message on the council group me, and the students who were interested, we started another chat, and we're going to probably start the video within the next week, we're going to start writing a script. We're going to be looking for everybody else's feedback on it. If they have any ideas that they would like to have in the video, let us know. But the video is primarily going to be about what equity and equality is and what it means to us, and how we can show that in a school setting, how we can show it in a community setting, and just how we can be a positive influence for it. And then another thing was just to kind of give you guys a brief overview of the project. This is an extremely rough draft of kind of a timeline that we're working on, but we're hoping to have the video finished in April. And then in late April, early May, start interviewing people so we can start newspaper articles and start finding people for our podcast that we are hoping to start late in the summer. So mid-May to mid-July, we're going to kind of just take a pause on the project since that's everybody's summer break and we want you guys to enjoy the summer. And then once we get back, probably after we have our first meeting with all the new members of the council that we will be getting, we will be starting to host the podcast. So we'll kind of get more into that when time gets closer, but that's kind of like a brief overview. Yes, Dr. Woodstucker, do you have anything else?
I think you covered it quite well, Anastasia. I will add, for those of you who are participating, and we want all of you to find time, if you will, to participate. We will be working closely with Mrs. Khan Tatman's office, communications office, and technology office if necessary to provide you with the training and the tools to film this video. I think it's going to be a major game changer, especially coming from our outstanding students, coming from you and hearing from your own lived personal experiences. So thank you.
And I just wanted to let you guys know, if you have any feedback or have ideas for the video, just send them in the chat, or you can email me and Dr. Woodstucker. And then if there's anybody who is still interested in doing the video that hasn't messaged me yet, just let me know by like tomorrow and you can hop on the group me for the video.
All right, we're really excited about this project. Let us know if there's ways, if you don't want to do the video, because I know some of you are camera shy. Again, let me remind you, there's ways we can use the written word. We have Kentucky teacher columns. We can send them out to newspapers. We have lots of ways that we can showcase this project. So we will continue to work with you guys on how you want to do that, and just let us know how we can help you here at the Department of Ed.
Thank you. And just to add on, if you guys don't want to be in the video, just start kind of thinking of ideas for newspaper articles about maybe projects that you've seen throughout the state, or you can start writing or coming up with ideas for when we publish articles about what equity is, or kind of just using what we said in the video, or start finding a list of people that you think that we might be interested in interviewing for the podcast who can share their story. Because as we kind of talked about in the last meeting in February, this is going to be a story-based project. We don't want it to be a statistic-based, because many students, we're not going to lie here, they don't like just reading about statistics. They like hearing stories, and it's a lot more impactful. So if you ever hear of anybody, email me, let me know, and we will see how far it goes. So thanks, guys.
Okay. And then Dr. Woodstucker, while I have you here, I didn't know if you wanted to provide our students with an equity update. We've done some work here at the department. We have a few minutes if you'd like to update them. I know they always like to hear about that.
Oh, absolutely. One of the items that we constantly have discussed is diversifying the teacher workforce. And I mentioned the CATE program, the Kentucky Academy for Equity in Teaching. We're very fortunate with the support of Commissioner Glass, our Governor Bashura, and our assistant governor. We were very pleased, Lieutenant Governor, Coleman. We're very pleased to have her support in getting this initiative funded. It's a $1 million initiative. $500,000 will be spent towards Grow Your Own. So we could be looking at former teachers right now while we look at you all who are here, or you may be sitting in a classroom when we go back to class. You may be sitting at a future teacher, because we know from the research over 60% of teachers teach within 20 miles of where they went to high school. And so we're really excited about that. We're excited about your school districts partnering with higher ed institutions, with teacher education programs to provide mentoring, to provide support for those tough exams that teachers have to take, but and also opportunities to discuss some of the biases and experiences that they have experienced and that they may experience in the field. So we're excited about that. And hot off the press today, when we look at our teacher education department, teacher education effectiveness and licensure department, they work very hard with Commissioner Glass and members of the state board to look at alternative pathways to address the shortages of teachers in the field. And we are part of a grant through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to explore other opportunities to get highly qualified teachers in the field. And one of the things I'm excited about, that many of you either started the training or you will have training on empathy interviews as you take part in Commissioner Glass's listening tour. I think empathy interviewing and storytelling, as we heard Anastasia say, and we hear it from time to time, that from Mrs. Tony Collins-Tapman, is so important and so powerful than reciting stats. I like stats, but I like the power of storytelling more. And so we're going to encompass that as we continue to explore our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
Also, that reminded me to let you know that, so each of the members of so we participated in this empathy interviewing training, the members of some of the commissioners' leadership team, some associate commissioners, and others that were invited to some of the training. And we are all going to be paired with one-on-one interviews with you all. So within the next week or so, you will likely be hearing from, looks like Miles may have got kicked out, so I'm gonna put him back in there. So within a week or so, you're going to be hearing, there's a series of questions that, Dr. Woods Tucker is working on for part of his work and part of our work in the Office of Teaching and Learning. And it's going to be one-on-one interviews with one of our either associate commissioners or other staff members who participated in this training, where we're going to do the one-on-one interviews, because it'll help you, number one, in your empathy interviewing, either with the virtual tour or as we go out and ask for some additional help as we build our strategic plan and help with Jason's work as he goes across the state and sharing the mission and vision of what comes out of these tours, because we're going to need a lot of help with this. It's not, the tours are the beginning part, but what's going to happen after that is we're still going to invite people to be empathy interviewers as well. So for us, it helps us practice our empathy interviewing, but then it also helps you be part of it so we can have that one-on-one with you all. So I'll be sending you more information about that. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember who is paired with who, but I know you all love to interact with our leadership team and those here at the department. And so I think that'll be a really exciting opportunity for you. Do you all have any questions at all about our equity work or about the equity project for Anastasia or for me? It looks like Dr. Glass had to jump off to go to the Teacher Advisory Council. It looks like Soyana, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I would just like to say something about project work in general. The board is very accepting of student work. They love to see things pertaining to students on the agenda, and especially from students themselves if they were to present their work. And I know a lot of our members are doing some great work now, so don't hesitate to reach out to Dr. Brewer or Chair Young to present to the Board of Education on one of their meetings and to have that space on the agenda, because they would absolutely love it. And just seeing that would be great. And yeah, I just want to say that. But please, please, please present your work if possible and get in touch with Dr. Brewer.
Just adding on to Soyana real quick. The equity video has been approved on the June 2nd meeting for the Kentucky Board of Education. So it will be me and a few other students who are working on the video. We will present. And I've been working with Dr. Brewer, and so we are coordinating the presentation. So as it gets closer, I will figure out who's going to present with me. It'll probably be only 2 or 3 of us, because we want the focus to be on our video. So just be looking out for a message on that as well.
All right, just want to double check that date. Dr. Brewer, do you have the date on that? Was it the 2nd or the 7th?
June 2nd. April 7th is the meeting coming up, and then June 2nd for the June meeting.
My days are all messed up. So June 2nd. So mark your calendars, guys, and I'll make sure. I know obviously it's summer break. Some of you will be graduated by then, and will no longer care about the student advisory. But I somehow don't see that happening. I think you all are going to be advocates for life, but we'll definitely keep you posted at our next meeting, which by the way is April 13th. I think you all saw that in the agenda, but keep you posted so that you know how to tune in for that particular meeting. I believe we're going to try to slowly move back to either a hybrid if we can get it approved for Board of Education to start meeting again. And so I think it'll be a really exciting and moving presentation from students. And yes, our board absolutely loves to hear. I know they get very excited when Soyana presents. Again, to have that student voice on our board is extremely important, and it's part of the reason why we're just thrilled that we are going to continue to have that. Caleb, you have your hand up.
So that actually reminds me of a question that I've been meaning to ask you for forever, Tony, and I think that the rest of the group could probably, or have probably wondered it too. When will our last meeting as seniors be? Will it be the May meeting or the June meeting, or what will that look like?
So here's the process. I think I shared with you all, we have a lot of applications for the last class for you all that joined us this year. We had, my numbers are a little shaky. Let me see if I have them here. I think we received 120 apps for the vacancies for this year. And we received 308 for this next year. So right now, my team is going through and putting through, or we're going through and redacting, because obviously they're blind scored and there's a rubric involved and all that good stuff with applications and process and all that kind of stuff. I hope to name, and don't hold me to that right now, but in May is when I hope, because a lot of people have been asking, when will you name the new students? I hope to name them, or we hope to announce the new students in May. We would like there to be, the ideal situation is for our seniors to stay on to help with a little bit of the onboarding, kind of, welcome the new and then congratulate the ones that are going off. So ideally, May would be the time that we would announce, and then we would have a meeting. Our meeting would be in late May, like the 3rd. I'll have to look too. I need you all to send me your graduation dates too, so I'm not scheduling meetings on graduation dates. So if you all can get that to me, that would be great, because that's going to be really hard for me to keep track of otherwise. But to have that meeting in May, and then bring the new ones in, ideally. And then if you wanted to join in June for the meeting, again, we don't meet as much during the summer. Last year was a little different because we were in the middle of a really big crisis and a pandemic. It's really going to depend on when I talk to Dr. Glass and if there's really so many issues at hand. If you remember last June, we were getting ready to launch the Healthy at School guidance document, which you all played a huge role in helping us develop. So we were coming to you a lot more often as we were developing some of those immediate guidance documents. So it really just depends. But I guess the short answer is I think May will be the last formal meeting. but you all will still get the invite. I think Jack's brother came in, and I can't remember, Jack, maybe you can remember when I had him come and talk to you all. I think it might have been in August. So there'll be some opportunities for you all to come back and visit. But I would like, the first official meeting for the new council will be in August.
And one last question that I have, Tony, if you don't mind me asking. I know that I feel like I know everyone so well. We've met so many times over the course of the past almost year now. And I guess I'm just curious, would it be possible for us to have like an in-person retreat so we can like meet each other in person? Is that, have you thought about that? Or I know that it's difficult with COVID restrictions. I know there's a lot of pressure there. So I'm just curious.
Well, ideally we would have, ideally, at the beginning of it, when I first took over this position, the council, and some of you who had been on the council before, I think so Anna can remember, and there's several others, that it was quarterly. And I remember when I came in, we still had one that was in person. My first meeting here was still in person. It was last February, not this past, but a year ago, February. And so it used to be that the council had to come to every meeting in Frankfort. And then of course, COVID happened. And I do think that, this might be one of the best, things that if there was a best thing that came out of COVID, that we can have these meetings virtual. But I still would like, out of the entire year, to have you all, come to Frankfort and to be in the room with, the people who make it happen at KDE, because I think it's important for you all to see people and be in the same room with people and to interact. And typically those are full day. You would come in and spend, usually those are like 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. to like 2 p.m. days. If I can make that happen, I will make that happen. But I don't know if it's going to happen before May. And if I can try to see what we can do with our travel restrictions, which have not been lifted yet. It just depends on what we can and cannot do. Things are just really in flux right now with, what we're able to do. But I will definitely write that down, and I can let you guys know, and maybe even give you an update at the next meeting. So I would love nothing more than, after all of the stuff that you all have been through and all of the guidance that you have provided us, the council members who've been on with us for 2 years or more, plus our new council members and who are graduating, I would love nothing more to have a great socially distanced get together with you all at KDE if we're able to do that. I'll see what I can do on that. It just might be out of my hands until we can figure out where we are with vaccinations and such. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So just a couple of things before we leave. Just make sure you get me your good news. I'm going to call them good news items. Especially my seniors, make sure you get me your graduation dates so that when I'm trying to work with Dr. Glass and Dr. Tucker to get a future meeting, particularly in May, because we have April scheduled for April 13th, and the time is a little bit different. It's from 9 a.m. to 11 Eastern time. So make sure you have that marked. We had to finagle a little bit there. But in May, we will, I'm going to have to take in consideration graduations. So make sure you get those to me. And so we can work on getting that scheduled, and then share your good news with me. Let me know, what are your plans after high school? And we'd love to maybe even do some profiles for Kentucky Teacher on you. So just get in touch with me on those. And if there's anything else I can add, let me know. And I see one more hand raised, Anastasia.
I was just thinking about the May schedule, and I know a few of us, we're going to have the AP exams in May. So I'm not sure if those dates will affect it, because I know I have a few scheduled on a Tuesday. So I'm not.
Okay, so maybe not even meeting on a Tuesday would be good. Okay. I can check with maybe our testing on that too, and make sure we're clear on testing as well. Okay. All right, that's good to know. All right. Well, I guess I will close us all out. I think Dr. Glass is still with the Teacher Advisory Council. I really appreciate everybody coming this morning. I'm looking forward to, by the time we meet again, we will have had 2 virtual listening tours with the commissioner, and many of you are playing very important roles in those. So I appreciate you all volunteering for those. If you have not signed up and you participated today and would still like to maybe sign up and be a facilitator or help us take notes, shoot me an email and we can get you signed up and we can get you trained. And I would be more than happy to have you participate in this. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Let me know what else we can do here at the Department of Education to support you all. Thank you.